All right, last class, and wouldn't be too long. Let me just maybe start with some reminders about what you should really watch out for. All right, your lab number 5 on recursion, it has been released on Wednesday. As long as you can complete it by your exam time, make sure you actually understand the concept over there. Reach out to me if you got any problems. No submission required, as I said. You got full marks for that automatically, right? Just make sure you learn the material. That's more important. All right, so that one, make sure you really grasped the idea about recursion. I'll recap a little bit today about what you're supposed to learn from the labs and also from the lecture. So, but of course, you got to do the actual study and reach out to me if you got any problem. And your written test number 3, for sure, I'm going to release the result today. I'm going to do that, for sure. And for your programming test number 3 tomorrow, based on lab number 4, well, the same policy, the same time. Please just wait outside the room, and then as soon as we reach the starting time, we'll let you in, and then that'll be the last test for you. And for those of you who might be interested in taking this optional makeup test, in that case, it's going to be on Wednesday, and it will be based on your lab number 2 and also lab number 3, right? That'll be the coverage. And I'm still waiting for the lab monitor to confirm with me about the time, but tentatively, okay, it's going to be 3 p.m. I'll put a question mark over here, but I'm going to confirm today. I'm going to reach out to the lab monitor just to confirm. But 3 p.m. and the usual time constraint, 3 p.m. to 4:20, something like that. Okay, the same policy as ever. And about those of you who might be interested in some Q&A exam review session, you'll be in person. And I thought the best day to do it would be Thursday, December 8th. But I'm not too sure about you guys' exam schedule. I can tell you that I already submitted some requests for lecture hall, so we can book some room. Tell me something about your schedule. So it could be tentatively 1 to maybe 2:30, or it could be 4 to 5:30. For those of you who are here, any preference for you? I still got another course who got a review, exam review session, so that I'm seeing you guys first. Do you guys have any preference? If no, I'll just choose either one for you. Yes?
Would it be possible to do it through Zoom?
Over Zoom? It's not impossible. I can tell you the tricky thing. Because if we do it from Zoom, for the best sound quality, I may have to do it from home, but I will be on campus on that day. I would say try your best to reach out to campus. I'm going to record a session. So in case you have some question you want me to address, feel free to email me beforehand. I'll try to address that. Yeah. Okay, good. So guys, any preference? If you don't have preference, I'm going to choose for you. All right? You okay, right? Okay. Then, thank you for making that a little bit easier for me. I'll confirm with you about the time, okay, about the review. But that one thing, I have no set agenda. You can ask me anything about the course material. Except don't ask me what's on the exam, okay? I cannot really answer, you know that. But I'll give you guys some tips today, okay? All right, if no further question, 2 things I want to do. Actually, let me see how many things. Maybe 3 things. Number 1, I want to recap very quickly about the lecture videos you're supposed to watch from last Wednesday. I'll just highlight the key points you really want to make sure you pick up. If not, you can definitely reach out to me. And number 2, I want to wrap up the course just to go over very quickly about the topics that we have covered this semester, and then that could be a nice guidance for you when you actually prepare for the exam. And I'll give you some little bit further tips about beyond the course if you want to do some extra work to really strengthen your background. I have some tips for you. Number 3, I want to talk about the exam after the break, okay? So we'll see how I wouldn't imagine that will take long, okay? And the first thing I would like to do is about what you guys are supposed to study since last Wednesday. Of course, if you haven't, plan your time, right? Your exam is next Monday. It's not that far away. So if you go to the lectures page, let me just remind you very quickly, you will see under 23 over here, we got several videos over here for you. So I'm not going to cover any new material anymore from today. So these are the last set of topics you will have to study. I'm going to recap briefly. And make sure you study those examples and also especially the principle about how you can do call by value and also call recursion on arrays. I think that one is something you definitely have to know before the exam. And then there's some code example over here about all the example we did. Feel free to check them out. Use debugger, use your sketch paper to trace them, and then also modify them. Your lab number 5, solution has been posted. Do try them first before you actually look at the solution. I highly recommend. And if you want some extra practice, go for coding that. It's a very nice site. They got many problems over there for you to solve recursively. Okay? Right, that's about what you have to study. And I'm just going to do a very quick recap about what you were supposed to learn from the videos. And then if you guys got any questions, just interrupt me. Okay? Let me switch. Okay, so from last Wednesday's material, actually I'll get to this part a little bit later, the exam. I'll do that after the break. So let me first of all go here. Okay, so that'll be from Wednesday last week, right? So number one thing is you want to make sure you understand how to do the tracing for the recursion. Specifically, my tip for you, you may want to know how to trace this one specifically. Especially, think about for this one here. When I trace this particular example in the lecture, there is a sequence of the call that's being pushed into the stack. And also there is a sequence of the calls being popped off the stack. You want to make sure you know about the sequence well. Okay, for example, if you think about the sequence in which we push the invocation of methods into the stack, this will be the first one. This will be the second one, third one, fourth one, and also fifth one, something like that, right? So you want to make sure you understand the sequence, okay? That'll be my tip for you. And make sure you actually try this out. If you got trouble tracing them, bring your work to me, and then we can review that. And the next one will be, we already talked about on Monday the palindrome example. And if you recall very briefly, the idea would be we want to always make sure the beginning and the end are the same. And then we try to solve recursively on the subproblems that's actually strictly smaller. Always remember, when you try to solve problems recursively, if the problem is small enough, they are the base cases. Solve them right away. If the problem is kind of too big, you want to somehow truncate the problem into subproblems that are strictly smaller and solve that recursively. This pattern is followed throughout any recursion example you're going to see. In 2030, we don't really see many examples for recursion. It's mainly about advanced OOP. Recursion is not really OOP. So in 2011, next semester, if you're taking a course, the data structure, you will definitely see much more recursion. That's actually more natural. Especially you will learn about a data structure called tree. That one's the fun part about recursion. Anyway, so you can look forward to it. And we talk about reversal. We talk about number of occurrences. So for all the examples over here on the strings, make sure you understand the rationale behind about the thinking, which I definitely explain always. And also make sure if I give you something similar, you will be able to solve them. Okay? I'll talk a little bit more about what you may expect in the exam about recursion. I'll talk about it. Okay? Okay, reverse of string. Any question? We okay, right? Okay. And number of occurrences, I think these two are rather straightforward. Always identify what's the base case is and what is the recursive case, right? Just make sure. Okay. All right, recursion on array. That's also very important. So this one here, the way I try to structure the lecture in the video was I try to explain to you, we definitely have to solve recursively a subproblem that's actually strictly smaller. And the naive way is simply, let's say we start with this bigger problem, original problem. We try to create a subarray that's strictly smaller. And then eventually we get down to a subarray that's small enough for us to solve the problem right away. However, this solution might work, but it's too inefficient, especially as far as the space is concerned. When I mean, give you a little bit look ahead. When you guys come back in January, for those of you who might take 2011, we are going to continue with our logical thinking about how to program methods in a correct way. But correctness, of course, is always the priority. But number two will be, you want to make sure your method can be executed efficiently. And there are two ways to measure the efficiency for your method. One is about time, and the other one is about space. 2011 focused more on the time aspect, but that's something we'll definitely cover. For those of you who might be taking 2011 with me, I'll definitely talk much more about it. If not, I'm pretty sure your instructor will look after you well. Okay? And that's the naive way. And what you guys have to know is about the general pattern for passing the indices. Right? So there are two things you want to know. Number one, call by value. The same array, let's say this is the original problem. The same array is always there in the memory. We are not creating any extra array in the memory. The only thing we create for each level of recursive call is by passing just a copy of the address. You can think about this is the original address. For the first call by value, it's going to be a new address. For the second call by value, it's going to be another address over here. Right? So it's the same array. The only thing that changed is about the range of from and to. Okay? So for example, you can see we start with from 0 to 2. That means we want to cover the entire array. When we get to the first recursive call, we'll increase the from 0 to 1. So in that case, we are reducing strictly the range of elements we have to consider. It's effectively a subarray. All right, that's really the basic idea you want to capture from the lecture. Okay? So number one is about call by value. Number two is about the range of indices. In the actual exam, you will be given maybe a different problem, but in which case you have to know how to specify the range of indices. That'll be the tricky part. But you got the example we went thoroughly in the lecture and also lab 5. I think those are enough. Make sure you understand them. Okay. Guys, any question about calling recursions on arrays? Any questions? Okay. Again, I like to do some look ahead because 2030 is so related to 2011. In 2030, the way you run recursion is to say we got some so-called linear structure. Linear in the sense that you simply have an array or maybe a sequence that goes from left to right. And the way we run recursion is that for the original call, it covers the entire array. For recursive call number one, we try to reduce the array size to just a subarray that covers over here. And then the next one will be covered just this, and etc. That's not a very natural way to think about recursion. But it's kind of due to the limitation for this course. We want to focus more on OOP. In 2011, you're going to learn about something called tree. And we actually have seen trees already. Remember in the inheritance lecture, we talked about the hierarchy for maybe a smartphone or maybe for a student management system. That's something called a tree. So for example, if you got a tree that looks like this, it's just a binary tree, for example. And let's say I want to find out if an element exists in somewhere in the tree. How can I systematically traverse or travel through the tree to actually find out whether the element exists? For that one, naturally, you have to think recursively. That's something you will do substantially in 2011. Right? So I think what you learned, just the basic in 2030, if you can master that as much as possible, you're well prepared for 2011. Okay. All right, guys, any question about this part here? Right? If you haven't really studied the lecture videos, please do, because you definitely need that for completing lab 5 and the exam. If you have already, if you got a question, my office hours will still be effective for today and tomorrow. All right? Good. Okay, that's good. Let me just go. All right, so we did 2 examples, I believe, right? If you look at both examples there, they follow the same pattern. Let me just highlight them again. So this will be the method at the top level. And it takes an array. And that one there will take a so-called recursive helper method, right? So you pass call by value, you pass the array reference, you start with index 0 and index a.length minus 1. Literally the minimum and the maximum indices. This pattern here is almost always the same. There might be some little bit variance depending on the problem. And then this will be the main recursive helper method you will have to program. And you basically have to think about base case, right? We talk about in the lecture video why these two will be considered as empty array and also array with only one element, right? And also this will be the recursive case, in which case you have to do the recursive call on a strictly smaller problem because we have incremented from by 1. So we are reducing the range of element just by 1. And then this will be just called by value. All right? Are we good? Okay. Okay, so that will be, and also some tracing over here. And make sure you understand for each tracing case, they are very important to grasp. And the second example we did was about whether or not the numbers are sorted, right? It's basically the same idea. The only extra complication is, over here you can see, just this expression over here. Rather than a very single, like a single very simple Boolean expression, you have to compare from and also from plus 1. Of course, I visualized that example very thoroughly also in the lecture video. Please make sure you check it out. All right, and also making a recursive call over here. You can see here from plus 1 and 2. Okay, and is it always you have to say just from plus 1 and 2? I would say for the level of difficulty, almost always, but you cannot always take it for granted. I might just give you a problem that's still simple, but you will have to do some different manipulation on the indices. So make sure you really understand why we're doing this. Okay. All right, I think that's about the 2 examples we did in the recursion. That's about the wrap-up, the recap I would like to do. Are you guys okay for recursion? Yes. Is there a reason for us to use a helper method? Good question. No. Okay, Kevin's question was, okay, good question. I think it's a very nice motivation question here. Let's say here, why do we need this method here and also this method over here, these two? You can think about, typically, you will make this method here, which is not recursive, because this method here is only invoking another method. It's not recursive, right? So this method here is typically made public. For me as a user, if I want to find out whether or not my array is sorted, I will just call this method because I only need to pass my array, nothing else. However, internally, we typically make the recursive helper method private. It's a helper method, meaning that in order for the programmer to solve the problem for me, they will have to pass on additional information to actually solve the problem, in which case, you can see the from and to. For me as a user, I just want to know if my array is sorted. Why should I know about from and to? That will be something up to the programmer internally. But for you, let's say, because now you are the programmer, right? You should really know how to define both. But if you're a user, in that case, you only need to be bothered with this. Make sense to you?
Yeah, so what if you just put the helper method and this sorted method? Just the other examples, it doesn't even have the use one method.
You cannot really use a single method over here because think about what's happening here. Every time, let's say if you only got this method here, let's say this is the only one. Every time you want to make a recursive call, you somehow want to pass an array that is strictly smaller. But as we said before, you don't want to create just a subarray. It's so much wasting the memory. So what we want to do instead is to have this kind of special method here. So every time you want to make a recursive call, the way you create a strictly smaller problem is by manipulating the indices over here only. You don't have to create any new array. You just call by value, pass the reference. Okay? Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. It's a very conceptual clarification, of course. You always want to know why we have 2 methods over here. I just explained that. Okay? All right. Guys, final call. Do you guys have any questions about recursion in general? If you want to think a little bit more, that's okay. Come to my office hour, come to the review session if you've got questions. Okay? Okay, if no, I would suggest we do one more thing before we take a short break, and then I'll talk about the exam. Okay? And we don't need to take attendance today. It's the last class. Okay, so I already got a record on all the attendance check. I will calculate according to the formula specifying the course syllabus. You can assume I'm going to do that. All right? For those of you who have come to most of the classes, you definitely get a 5%, as I promised, and then accordingly. All right, let's now take a look at some wrap-up. Just to summarize about what you have learned in this course. And there will be some optional topics which I didn't really get the time to really cover this time, but they are very natural evolution to what we have learned in the inheritance lecture. So for those of you who might be interested during the break, you can go ahead. But if you take 2011 with me next term, I will still cover them in the lecture. But we'll see. Okay, so, oops, I don't want any update at the moment. It's okay. Okay, what you have learned. All right, procedural programming in Java. And as I said before, recursion is not really categorized as OOP. So that's why I don't want to spend too much time on that. So only the basic at the end. But in 2011, we definitely will focus more on the data structure and algorithm part, in which case you definitely need recursion. And also we cover exceptions, right, about error handling in Java. So these are the two things you definitely want to make sure you review for the exam. And for data structure, I would say the only one we really have covered was just about primitive array. So I would say for those of you who didn't really get a chance to manipulate the primitive arrays a lot in your first year, I think you definitely learned something from this course. Primitive array is really the fundamental building blocks later on when you want to build more complicated data structure. And again, so look ahead. In 2011, we're going to say there are several layers you want to build things. The bottom layer is the building block. You know when you play with Lego when you were a kid, right? Actually you got to build, different very exciting artifacts by using building blocks. So arrays, primitive array is definitely one kind of building block. The other kind of building block is something called linked list. You may have heard about the term before, but that one there is a very different data structure at a fundamental level you have to learn in 2011. But that one there uses lots of aliasing, which we cover a lot today in this course. Anyway, only arrays. You want to make sure you review the programming pattern. And also, I would say when you review written test number 1, remember there were certain questions there which I actually tried to base the question on the review tutorial, about how to manipulate the array. That'll be a very nice review for you. Okay. And then, okay, how about OOP? We also covered quite a lot. We did, review classes, attributes, object reference types, and methods, constructor, accessor, mutator, helpers, and also dot notation, context objects, right? They are very fundamental. We definitely spent quite a bit of time reviewing the basic in the first 2 weeks. And then, let me see. Sorry, my computer's a little bit slow. And of course, aliasing, that's also very important. Of course, aggregation, composition. Inheritance, we also spent about 6 lectures on that. So please make sure you also really take that as an important takeaway for this course. How about how we can use the extend keyword for code reuse? From there, we learn about expectation. And then static versus dynamic types, and also rule about substitution, and also the cast, right? Whether or not a cast is compilable, under what circumstances are you going to get class cast exception? And also how you can use the instance of checks to really avoid class cast exception, right? That's really the whole story over there. Polymorphism and also dynamic binding. Polymorphism, we talk about how you can apply that in return values and also arguments, right? So also these are the 2 things we talk about. And also overloading, right? About equals method, right? That's just a quick list about what you should really review. And we also use lots of Eclipse for Euro labs and also the programming test. And breakpoint debugger. I really hope you have already practiced a lot about how to use breakpoint debugger when doing your labs. Only if you practice more can you actually use it very naturally during the stressful time, like in the programming test, or maybe later on your programming interview. Just make sure you really learn about breakpoint debugger. And unit testing, for sure. Right? Optional topics. These will not be covered in the exam, okay? But there are 2 very natural follow-up topics to the inheritance. One is about abstract classes. The other one is interfaces. And the third one is about generics. So I did record lectures last year when we were still delivering this course online. For those of you who might be interested in learning, all the materials are there. You can feel free. Just check them out. And beyond this course, I have 2 tips for you, what I normally give to students. So there are 2 books I would say check out from the library or get a copy of yourself. There's some very nice exercises you can potentially do. But these exercises I'm going to suggest will not be doable just within a single break. It might be just for the rest of your degree. But I think it's going to be a very solid exercise you can do. This textbook here, Introduction to Algorithm, is a very typical textbook you will have to, your instructor in 3101 the algorithm course will actually use in the 3rd year. It may not hurt for you to get access to that book earlier. What can you do for that book? The book is not in Java. It's not in any particular programming language. Everything they talk about is written in pseudocode, meaning that it's just for the ideas. So it will be a very nice programming exercise for you to do. If you try to read the textbook, read a particular data structure or algorithm, and understand the rationale, translate it into Java, and then try to write some JUnit test cases for that and pass them. That'll be a very nice way to really sharpen your programming skill. All right? That'll be exercise number 1, I would suggest. As I said, it's a very huge time commitment if you decide to do this, but I guarantee it's going to benefit you a lot. If you can do this, by the time you graduate, you'll find your programming interview will be just so much smoother, I would say. That'll be number 1. It's more about data structure and algorithm. Number 2 is more about OOP. We already covered inheritance, which is really important topic for advanced OOP. And there is a research area or practical area called design patterns, briefly speaking. So when people program in OOP language, they have certain problems which they encounter again and again and again. So they have some recurring solution that's the best practice for them to solve the problems. So that's called design pattern. So this book over here, the language is C++, not Java. But for those of you who love C++, that might be the book you definitely want to get hold of. But the book here, they actually basically got a shopping cart of design patterns. I forgot the exact number, maybe about 30, 40-ish design patterns. Each one of them is trying to solve problems in a very specific scenario. What can you do if you get hold of this book? Read each pattern one by one, and for each pattern there, understand about how the classes should work together and under what circumstances should you really apply that solution, and then translate into Java and try to write some JUnit test cases for yourself. That'll be the second exercise you can do. Again, it wouldn't be doable just within one break. It's really for the rest of your degree if you want to do such exercise. And for your lab number 4, that one there has a little bit of flavor of design pattern. Later on, you can look it up. It's called observer design pattern. I didn't really mention the name in the lab because it's not so important for you to know the name, but it's more important to know how to do it. All right, that's it. During the break, for your 2011, your instructor is they're going to assume you actually know very well about basic and advanced OOP. We have covered everything you should know. Hopefully, you'll be fine. And I would suggest if you want to also get prepared for 2011 in the winter, you also need to make sure you review 1019 and 1090. Logic is also very important, okay, for learning this stuff. And do not abandon Java. You definitely need it for later courses. All right, that's it. Good to see you guys. For the first time, I returned back to in-person teaching. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy learning with me, and then I might see you later. Any question? All right, good. How about we take just about 2 minutes break, and then I'll talk about the exam. Okay, 2 minutes break. $10.90? That's a good question. Let's check. Yeah, I believe so. Let's check. Yeah, I'll be with you. Let's check together. I never remember what the prerequisite is. Okay, 2011. Okay, 1019 for sure. Also, we got also 1090 here too. So it seems like both. We talk about prerequisite. Yeah, prerequisite here. You see either 1019 or 1028. Okay, so, okay, one of these, first of all, number one. Number two, one of these. And number three, this. That's how you read it. Okay. Well, if you really wanted to take a 2011 with me, but couldn't get a chance, don't worry. I got all the recordings on my site. You can always check it out. Right? Yes. Yes.
Last Friday you recorded the attendance on paper.
Oh, what paper, sorry?
On last Friday you recorded the attendance on paper, right?
Yes.
And it shows that Sam is absent on this one. So are you just going to adjust it?
Oh, don't worry. I'll sort it out. Don't worry. Yeah.
Just found that I had an absent last Wednesday, but I remember last Wednesday's lecture is cancelled.
Mm-hmm.
I click shows area.
Yeah, I'll sort it out. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah. Avi, how's it going? I'm doing well. How are you? Good to see you. Absolutely. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, did you release the solution videos for Lab 4?
Lab 4? Yes, I did. I did. Yeah, so if you look at the lectures page, yeah, I'll show it to you. Yeah, come here. You're not? Oh, too bad.
Computer science major.
Oh, I see. Which major are you?
Math major.
Oh, math major. Can you get any credits if you take 2011? Can you get any credits if you take 2011?
I technically could if I took the prerequisites, but
Ah, I see. I see. Might be too much, right?
I'm taking user interfaces next year.
Okay, I see. Okay, I'll be with you. Yeah. So, yeah, come over. Actually, you can look at the screen too. Yeah. So if you look at right over here, that's for solution walkthrough. Lab 5.
No, for Lab 4.
Lab 4, yeah, over there. Lab.
I tried doing Lab 5.
Right.
I didn't see that. Okay,
It was there since Wednesday.
okay, I'm going to look through it, because I need it.
You definitely need it for tomorrow, for sure. Yes, question.
How many class are you teaching for 2011?
I mean, which section?
Yeah, like, or do you have a section that you're teaching?
X.
Is it full? Or all
You know what? I believe. All right. Okay, let me show it to you. Yeah, guys, just for your information, either you want to take with me or avoid me. So it will be section X next semester, 2011. I believe at the moment it's already full. If you really want to join, I think within a week or two, there will be a wait list in the department. Just go there and sign up for the list. And don't worry too much. Just once you're in the wait list, just come to the lecture as if you will get enrolled. I'm pretty sure you will get enrolled at some point. Yeah, 2011 is lots of fun. Lots of fun. Different kinds of fun. Different kind. All right, guys, one more minute, and then we'll talk about exam, and then we're done. Wouldn't take long. So have you got your 1090? Oh, too bad. Okay. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the exam. All right. All right. I'll mention the basic information here and some guidance. You guys can feel free to ask me any question you may want to you may have. I can tell you that I haven't really started preparing the exam yet. I do have some idea, so I can give you some tips. So just based on your question, just ask me. But let's go over this first. Right? It's going to be next Monday. And sorry, it's going to be 7 to 10 p.m. Very late. Bring your snack if you need to. I don't see there's any problem with it. Okay, make sure you have your dinner before you come. And it's you know what? I'm still not really used to this new name, but that's the, the Canada Tennis Center, right? The big one over there. Okay. And for the coverage, everything, basically, right? Everything we have learned is cumulative. Okay. But I can tell you how I typically make exam questions. I basically just go over the slides that we have gone over. I also go over the iPad example we've gone over, and then I'll try to say, oh, they should really know this. Maybe I can make a question out of them. So as long as you can really understand and also can do the exercises we have done in the classes, it should be all right. Okay. And for the format for the exam, you guys can ask me more, but for now, I can say there will definitely be multiple choice. Oh, for this one here, I will also send you some announcement very soon. For multiple choice, we may have to use a Scantron. I'm not sure if you guys have seen a Scantron, right? It's something like a piece of like a thick paper. You have to use the pencil to actually put the answer, okay? So I'm going to confirm this very soon. So Scantron. So I believe you had to bring some pencil. And I think there's a particular model of pencil. I forgot. It's B or B4. I'll also confirm that. Okay. Make sure you bring that pencil. Otherwise, your answers cannot be read. All right. And for sure, there will be some written question this time, right? I think for your written test 1, 2, and 3, we didn't really have anything for you to write. But I think for your exam, definitely. Okay. I'll give you some idea. For sure, you have to know how to program recursively. What's the best way to get prepared? Oh, question.
Really quick question. So for the breakpoint,
Yes.
is it going to be like blocks of code that we have to write, or?
Oh, okay. I wouldn't imagine I will ask you to write lots of code, except for recursion. There might be some blocks of code you have to write certain lines, but it wouldn't be that. Okay, here is one. Here is a very long JUnit test. Now program like how you did in a programming test. No, it's not like that. Okay. So definitely you want to know how to program some recursive method. I might give you some. I don't know how many. But okay, what's the best way to really prepare for that? Okay, let me write them down. Number one, you want to make sure you go over the lectures, right? All the example, the ones I highlighted today. Number two, make sure you properly did lab number 5. And number 3, if you can, this one is more like optional because presumably, once you have done these 2 and understand everything, you should be ready for the exam. But it wouldn't hurt if you want to do some extra coding bet. Okay, I'll put this one in parentheses. It's more like optional if you have time. Okay. And there could be some justification. Something like, for example, I might give you a fragment of code, okay, that involves inheritance, and then you may want to explain why or why not. There is a class cast exception, right? That's pretty much what we did, right, in the lecture. So that's also possible, okay? And of course, it's more like a short answer. You just say, okay, yes, there will be class cast exception, and number 2, this is why, okay? Number 3, could be like an output. Maybe something, I'll give you a fragment of code, and then you just tell me what the outputs are, right? For example, instance of check, right? You remember the exercise we did in class? You know, if you got some instance of expression, whether or not you should return true or false, right? That's also a very typical one, okay? And there'll be no data sheets, so you have to make sure, but I don't think there's really like a definition question there that I can really ask you, but just make sure, for the critical ones, make sure you definitely want to remember, but the main thing I want to test you about is whether or not you can trace the code if you really understand the principle, okay? No data sheets. And no sketch paper from your side, but I will make sure I include enough pages for you as part of the exam booklet. So don't worry. I'm not saying you cannot sketch, but you just cannot bring your own sketch paper. I'll provide the sketch paper to you. And what should you bring? Please make sure you bring your valid photo ID. I think for the written test or programming test, if I recognize you, I can excuse you for not bringing the ID. But for the exam, it's going to be formal, official. If you don't have your photo ID, you cannot take the exam. Guys, please. Okay? Like a York UID, health card, license, or passport if you want to, right? And if you want to, you can bring water and snack as well. Okay, it's very late, I know. Sorry, but just the way it is. Okay? Guys, that's about what I want to mention. I will also, you will see this note very soon today when I post the lecture recording. If I got any additional tips I can post, I'll definitely let you know before the exam. But yeah, that's it. Do you guys have any question about the exam? Marcus?
Will you release like a little practice test for like our written test? Is there any chance that you'd be posting one for the exam?
I can, yeah. Yeah, I will definitely give you guys some practice question, but it may not be like a practice test because, you know, exam is pretty long for 3 hours. Okay, I'll make sure, yes. I'll give you guys some practice question, for sure. You guys can expect to hear back from me by Friday. Well, of course, don't wait for me. Please review your material before. That'll be more meaningful if you try them when you're ready. Yes, go ahead. Written test, yes. For written test number 3, I'll release that today for sure. And oh, that's good. I'm glad you brought it up. So for your programming test number 3, which is going to happen tomorrow, I will try to. I'll talk to the TA to see if we can at least release the result and feedback to you by your exam day. So at least you know how you did, right? That's for sure. For your makeup test, that might be something we have to let you know maybe a little bit later, but you can definitely assume. I already announced that I'm going to keep my word. If you actually got a very nice result for your makeup test, I'm going to replace it for programming test 1 and potentially programming test 2 as well. If you didn't really do so well, no effects. You wouldn't be replaced by lower marks, right? It's really to your advantage, right? All right, guys, any other question for exam? Navi? Oh, yeah, makeup test. Yeah, I kind of mentioned that in the beginning. No worries. I'll mention it. Yeah, for the makeup test on Wednesday, if you're interested, again, it's optional. You don't need to show up. You wouldn't get any penalty if you don't show up. I still need to hear back from the lab monitor there. Most likely, it's going to be 3 p.m., most likely, for 80 minutes, like usual. Yeah. Guys, any other questions? Yeah, multiple choice and written. I know you may want to just ask. That's why I didn't want to mention that because seriously, I still don't know how I'm going to distribute the portion between written and multiple choice. But you can, I think it's more likely you will have more weight on the multiple choice than the written. It could be 55% versus 45. It could be 60 versus 40. But I just say more multiple choice than written. Yeah, that's what I can say. Yes? Go ahead. No, lab 5 is on recursion. So for tomorrow, the only lab you need to study for is lab 4. Yes, absolutely. No recursion tomorrow. Don't be scared. No recursion. But get prepared for recursion on the exam. Okay. Guys, are we okay? Oh, Abby. Yeah, I can do that. Yes, but I think that this one is pretty much the guide, but I can definitely make a PDF, just make it more convenient. I can do that too. Yes. Okay, I'll put it here. Just make sure I do that. And also PDF guide. All right. Yeah, it's going to be pretty late around that time. Just make sure wear a jacket, right? Make sure you stay warm. Yeah, it's not going to be very pleasant. Yeah. But watch Viva maybe at 2 p.m. if you can on that day. That might relax you a little bit. Yes, go ahead. Sorry? Lab 3? Uh-huh. The lab 4? Uh-huh. Are you talking about programming test number 3 tomorrow? The lab test tomorrow, yes. It's only about lab 4, yes. Uh-huh. Mainly about the inheritance and also how you manipulate the arrays like the way we did in the lab 4. Yes. Okay. Only lab 4. All right, any other question, guys? Good. Yeah, we're done. Thank you so much, but I will still see you guys a lot, a few more times. So yeah, stay healthy, eat well, and then I'll see you guys very soon. Take care.